I knew something was wrong the moment I saw the baby. The hospital room was warm and sterile, filled with the soft beeping of machines and that faint chemical smell I've come to associate with new beginnings. My son, Derek, stood beside the bed, grinning like a schoolboy. His wife, Tessa, lay in the bed, pale but glowing, cradling a tiny pink bundle in her arms. I should have felt joy, relief, that familiar maternal ache of generations continuing. But when I leaned in for a closer look, I froze. The baby's eyes, so distinctly almond-shaped, the black hair, thick and jet dark, the yellow undertone of his skin. We are Irish-German, pale as milk. Derek has red undertones and freckles. Tessa's family is Swedish. Blonde hair going back 3 generations. There's no possible way. And yet, I didn't say anything. Not at first. Instead, I smiled, or tried to, and murmured, "He's beautiful." Because he was, but not in the way I expected, not in the way that made sense. Derek kissed Tessa's forehead and said proudly, "We named him Kai." Kai. Not Kevin, not Daniel, not even something classic like James. No, Kai. I blinked. I felt like the floor had shifted an inch to the left, just enough to make me wobble, but not fall. Yet. The ride home from the hospital was a blur. My husband, Charles, drove us back in silence. He's not one to speak unless he has something worth saying, and that night, he had nothing. But I could feel his hands gripping the steering wheel harder than usual, white-knuckled. We didn't speak until we were inside our house, jackets off, the kettle boiling. "He's not Derek's," I said finally, as I pulled down 2 mugs. Charles didn't answer. I turned. "Did you see?" He looked at me, his face unreadable. I saw. And we wait. We don't accuse. We don't speculate. Not yet. I nodded. But inside, my stomach was turning like the tide. Raised that boy. I know my son. And that baby wasn't his. Not biologically, not genetically, not even maybe. The next few weeks were an act in endurance. I brought over a small basket of hand-sewn clothes. Tessa smiled, distracted, as she scrolled through her phone while I set them on the couch. Derek was changing a diaper in the next room. The TV played softly in the background, some game show with canned laughter that echoed hollow in the apartment. "I found a local pediatrician for Kai," I said, trying to sound helpful. "Dr. Meisner. She helped with my granddaughter's colic last year." Tessa barely looked up. "We're going with Dr. Wong. Derek found him online. He's culturally sensitive." I paused. "Culturally?" She looked me in the eye. Cold. "We want Kai to be raised with diversity in mind. You're probably not used to that kind of thing, but it's important now." Something about her tone made my skin crawl, that subtle condescension wrapped in politeness. "You're too old to understand modern relationships," she added with a sweet smile. "It's okay." I sat there, blinking. My tea had gone cold. Later that night, I did something I'm not proud of. I logged into Derek's old email. He still uses the same password he did in high school, D3 Rec Rules 99. I shouldn't have, but I had to. And there it was, buried deep in a folder labeled Work Stuff, an email trail with someone named Han, not a colleague, not a friend, not someone Tessa would be thrilled about. Just 2 messages, dated April 9th and May 2nd, exactly 9 months before the baby's birth. The subject line? "Let's not talk again." But the content? "I told you this wasn't a game, Han. You said you wanted one night. You lied. She doesn't know. She can never know. I'm going to be a father soon. Please don't contact me again." My blood ran cold. I sat there for almost 15 minutes, rereading the words, parsing them, looking at every date, every line. If I was right, Tessa hadn't cheated. Derek had. And maybe this wasn't just a question of betrayal. Maybe this was a cover-up. The next time I visited, I watched Tessa hold the baby. She was a good mother, attentive, patient, loving. And Kai clearly adored her. He smiled at her voice, calmed at her touch. But Derek? He was distant, too distant, changing diapers with a mechanical coldness, holding the baby like a borrowed package, and never, not once, referring to him as my son. It was always, The baby. Never Kai. Never mine. I waited until Tessa was out on a walk with the stroller before I asked him. "Derek," I said, "I saw the emails." He stiffened. "What emails?" "With Han." His mouth opened, then closed, then again. "You went through my email?" "You're deflecting," I said calmly. He sank into the kitchen chair, like someone had pulled the bones from his body. "I made a mistake, Mom," he whispered. "A stupid, selfish mistake. So, Kai..." He nodded once, slowly. "He's not yours?" "No, and she doesn't know. She thinks it was a sperm donor. I told her I couldn't, because of an old injury. I lied." I stared at him. My own son. A liar. A coward. You're playing house with a woman who thinks you're infertile, raising someone else's child, pretending this was her idea. She wanted a baby. I panicked. You let her believe she used a donor, but in reality, it's your ex-lover's child? He winced. "Don't say it like that." I stood. My heart was pounding. "You have no idea what you've done." He buried his face in his hands, and I realized then, this wasn't her betrayal. This was his. But the consequences? Oh, they were going to tear her apart, and I would be the one holding the pieces. Tessa called me on a Wednesday. It was unusual. She rarely called. Texted, yes, when she wanted to share a baby photo or ask about a diaper rash. But this was different. Her voice was tight, thin, like stretched wire. "Hey, do you have a minute?" I was in the middle of chopping carrots, prepping for dinner, but I stopped, wiped my hands on my apron, and sat down. "What is it, sweetheart?" There was a pause, then a forced laugh. "It's probably nothing," she said. I found something in Derek's car." I didn't breathe. "What kind of something?" "A receipt." I waited. She continued. "From a restaurant, someplace in Chinatown. Golden Star Dumpling House. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, a dessert. And it's dated February 19th, the day he told me he had to work late and crashed at Mike's place." Another pause. Her breath caught. "It was in the glove box, tucked under the manual. I wasn't even snooping. I was looking for the damn insurance card." I tried to keep my voice even. "Have you asked him about it?" "No, not yet." Her voice trembled. "What if I'm wrong? What if it's nothing?" I almost told her. Right then, everything I knew, everything I'd pieced together, the emails, the dates, the baby. But I didn't, because it wasn't time. She had to get there herself. Later that night, I told Charles. We were sitting in bed, the TV playing some muted documentary neither of us was watching. "She found the receipt," I said softly. Charles looked over. "You think she knows?" "She's circling it, like a wounded animal sniffing its own blood, but she doesn't see the wound yet." He sighed, turned off the TV. "How long do you think this can last?" I stared at the ceiling. "He's sitting on a powder keg," I whispered, "and every day he lights a match just to see how long the fuse is." 3 days passed. I didn't hear from either of them. Then Saturday came. We were invited over for dinner. Just us, the baby, and the 2 of them. A small meal. Casual, they said. I agreed, knowing damn well this wasn't going to be casual. From the moment I stepped inside their apartment, I could feel it. The air was tight, heavy. Tessa was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. Derek barely looked at me, and when he did, it was a glance soaked in guilt. Dinner was awkward. Chicken stir-fry, overcooked rice, and 3 glasses of wine, 2 of them mine. I needed the numbness. At one point, as I held Kai in my arms and bounced him gently on my lap, Tessa sat down beside me on the couch. "He looks like you," she said. It was a lie, but I nodded anyway. Then, without looking up, she asked, "Do you think Derek would ever cheat on me?" The room went silent. Even the baby stopped cooing. I looked down at Kai. His big, curious eyes stared back at me. So foreign, so beautiful, so not my son's. I took a slow breath. "I don't think Derek is stupid enough to throw away what he has." Tessa's jaw clenched slightly. "He used to call me from the office every day. Now, days go by. He says he's just tired. But I don't know." I reached out and touched her hand. It was cold. "Has he ever lied to you before?" I asked gently. She hesitated. "Well, yes, kind of. It's complicated." There it was. The door cracked open. After dinner, Derek walked us out. Tessa stayed behind, claiming she had to put Kai down. As we reached the car, I turned to him. "She's suspicious," he nodded. "She found the receipt, didn't she?" I didn't answer. Instead, I said, "You need to tell her. She's unraveling." "She can't know," he snapped. "She'll leave. She'll take the baby." I blinked. "The baby that isn't yours?" He flinched like I'd slapped him. "That's not the point." "That's exactly the point," I said, voice rising. "You are building your entire life on a lie, Derek, and you're dragging her through hell while doing it. She's happy. She's confused. I'm trying to protect her." "No, you're protecting yourself." He looked away. The streetlight cast his face in shadow. "Han's coming back into town," he said finally. "She texted me. She wants to meet Kai." I stared. "You're still in contact?" "I blocked her. She used a what?" "Different number." I exhaled sharply. This was worse than I thought. The next morning, Tessa showed up at our door. Alone. Hair in a messy bun, circles under her eyes, wearing a hoodie that was 2 sizes too big. She was holding a manila envelope. "I need to ask you something," she said, her voice raw. I led her inside, poured her coffee, sat across from her at the kitchen table. "I mailed off for a DNA test last week," she said, tapping the envelope. "Just out of curiosity. You know, those ancestry kits? I had one for Kai. Wanted to know about potential allergies, stuff like that." My hands were shaking. She slid the paper across the table. I read it once, then twice. The words jumped off the page. Paternal match. No genetic relationship detected. She looked at me, eyes glassy. "I thought we used a donor," she whispered. "That's what Derek said. He told me he had low motility, that he was embarrassed, so we used a donor, anonymously. We didn't want to know." I stayed quiet. "I trusted him," she said. "I believed him. But this," she wiped her nose with her sleeve. "He knew this whole time. He knew." I reached across the table and took her hand, and for the first time, she didn't pull away. I knew the moment she left the house that morning. Early, makeup done, coat pressed smooth, not a hair out of place, that she wasn't just running errands. Tessa was going to find her. She didn't say it. She didn't need to. Mothers know. She'd found Han's name from a phone record Derek left open on his laptop. Not that he was trying hard to hide it. Guilt makes people sloppy. And now that the DNA results were in, Tessa had nothing left to guess. Only facts. Cold, unforgiving facts. She was gone for 4 hours. When she came back, she was shaking. I didn't ask. I just opened the door and pulled her inside like she was a storm I'd been expecting. She stood in my foyer like a woman who had wandered out of a wreckage. "He lied to both of us," she said, her voice hollow. "Everything. The donor, the timing, the reason he couldn't, everything." I took her coat. She was ice. We sat. "He told Han he was leaving me," she continued, staring at nothing. "That we were only together for appearances, that I'd pushed him into fatherhood, and he didn't want it. He told her I was emotionally unstable." I flinched. I knew Derek had lied, but I didn't know how deep it went. She said he was the one who suggested no protection. Said he wanted a child with her. Said he wanted to break the cycle. Whatever that means. She let out a bitter laugh. I asked her if she knew about me. She said yes, but he made it sound like I was a controlling old nag. I swallowed. "And Kai?" "She didn't want him," she said quietly. "Not at first. She said it was Derek who convinced her to keep the baby. Promised they'd be together. He told her we were divorcing and that I was only staying for appearances until after the baby came." I couldn't breathe. Tessa finally looked at me. But then, when she started pressing for commitment, he ghosted her, blocked her, told her I manipulated him into staying, that he owed it to me because of everything I'd done for his career. "His career?" I echoed, stunned. She nodded. "I helped fund his tech startup, you know. $30,000 from my grandmother's inheritance. He needed seed money. I transferred it in 2 payments. I had no words. $30,000. Gone, like the rest of her dignity, down some emotional sinkhole. She took a sip of water, then placed the glass down with trembling fingers. "I thought I was the fool," she said, voice breaking. "Turns out we both were, And then the part that chilled me the most. She asked to see Kai. She wants shared custody. I froze. She's his biological mother, Tessa whispered. And now that she knows he's alive and being raised by me, she thinks she has a right. She does, I said reluctantly. Legally, she might. But emotionally, her voice cracked. I stayed up for 41 hours after he was born because he wouldn't stop crying. I cleaned up every accident. I sang to him when he was sick. I clipped his nails. I memorized every freckle. And now she wants to waltz in like she's been here the whole time. Her tears were silent, but relentless. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I believed him. And now everyone's staring at me like I'm the homewrecker. I sat beside her. Tessa, I said gently, you are his mother. Biology doesn't change that. Love does. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure. Because the truth is, family court doesn't recognize lullabies. It recognizes blood. Later that night, after she left, Derek showed up. Unannounced. I was still in the kitchen washing dishes when I heard the knock. I opened the door, and there he was, looking like a man who'd walked through fire and had the burns to prove it. I need to talk to you, he said. I didn't let him in. He stood there, on the porch, in the same jacket I bought him for Christmas 2 years ago, a time when I still believed he was good. I lost everything, he said. She's gone. I crossed my arms. No, you threw everything away. She's not picking up. She took Kai. You don't get to cry now. I made a mistake. You made a series of calculated, selfish decisions. You broke her, Derek. He looked down. She told me she met Han, he murmured. And now Han's threatening to file for partial custody. This is all falling apart. I almost laughed. You built a house of cards in a hurricane. Of course it's falling apart. She's going to take him from us, he whispered. From her, I corrected. Not you. Not anymore. The next morning, I got a call. Blocked number. I answered anyway. Is this Derek's mother? A woman's voice. Precise. Formal. Calm in a way that chilled me. Yes. This is Han. I closed my eyes. I wanted you to know, she said, that I'm not going away. My son deserves to know where he came from. He came from chaos, I replied coldly. From deception. From your affair with a married man. I didn't know the whole truth, she said evenly, but I know it now. And I want my rights. You gave up your rights when you handed him to Tessa and walked away. There was a pause. Then, I want joint custody. My mouth went dry. I have a lawyer, she added, and I have proof that Derek was planning this child with me, that he lied to both of us. What are you hoping to gain? I asked. You want to rip him from the only mother he's ever known? For what? A moral victory? I want my son. I hung up. That night, Tessa called me again. She sent me a legal notice, she whispered. Custody hearing, October 17th. I have 26 days. I did the math quickly in my head. Lawyer retainer fees, filing fees, lost wages if she had to take time off work, the emotional toll. Tessa, I said gently, do you want to fight this? She didn't hesitate. I will burn every savings bond, every investment, every dollar. I will lose my job, my apartment, my sanity if I have to. But she is not taking my son. Her voice was steel. I believed her. And in that moment, I knew. Tessa wasn't the victim anymore. She was turning into something else entirely. It started with a lawyer's office and a 2-hour consultation that cost $325, money Tessa didn't have, but paid anyway. She borrowed it from her friend Mia, using her wedding ring as collateral. I'll get it back, she said, sliding the ring off with a sharp twist, like it offended her skin. Or I won't. Either way, I'm not wearing it again. The lawyer was a woman in her 40s named Erin Lee. Sharp eyes, brisk voice, absolutely no time for emotional padding. Let's talk facts, Erin said, flipping through the paperwork. Your name is on the birth certificate. You've been the child's sole caregiver since birth, and the biological mother is trying to establish custody retroactively, correct? Tessa nodded. And the biological father lied about a donor, forged a medical condition, and financially defrauded you into supporting the pregnancy under false pretenses. Another nod. I'm not promising miracles, Erin said, But I can tell you this. There is a legal path, and it doesn't involve sharing custody with a woman who ghosted the baby for a year. Tessa leaned forward. Tell me everything. When she came over that evening, her hands were trembling, but her face wasn't. It was solid, cold, and for the first time since this began, I saw a version of Tessa I didn't recognize. She was dangerous now. There's a clause in California family law, she said, setting her bag down. It's rarely used, but it's there. If a man has knowingly and fraudulently misrepresented paternity, the court can revoke his parental rights. I blinked. You can erase Derek? She nodded. The law views it as reproductive fraud. If I can prove that Derek lied about his infertility, manipulated me into conceiving and raising a child under false claims, and secured financial support from me based on that lie, she took a breath. Then I can terminate his rights. Legally, permanently. My heart pounded. And Han? I asked cautiously. She never signed anything. There's no co-parenting agreement, and she left the baby with me at birth. I have medical records, baby photos, witness statements, and text logs. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I can take them both down. Charles was worried. We sat in the garage that night, his quiet place, while he tinkered with the water heater that didn't need fixing. It's how he processed things, with tools and silence. She's spiraling, he said quietly. This revenge thing, it'll consume her. Wouldn't you? I asked. If someone lied to your face, tricked you into raising a child under false pretenses, then tried to take him away? He didn't answer, but I knew he agreed. Over the next week, Tessa gathered evidence like a woman possessed. Copies of emails Derek had sent referencing a donor, screenshots of text messages where he claimed to be infertile, bank statements showing her contributions, 2 payments of $15,000 each, wired in April and June, prenatal receipts, baby shower invitations, photos with her name on the ultrasound, even a recording, a quiet one, taken the day after she confronted Derek, where he admitted to making it all up. You know, I only said I couldn't have kids because I didn't want the pressure. That sentence alone was worth gold. Aaron, her lawyer, listened to the recording and nodded slowly. This, she said, is enough. But it got better, or worse, depending on who you ask. Tessa found a document in a storage folder Derek had backed up on Google Drive. Again, no password. He never learned. It was an unfiled legal agreement between Derek and Han, a drafted co-parenting contract with custody percentages, financial plans, even visitation schedules, dated 10 months before the baby was born. He'd planned the child with Han and still told Tessa it was a donor. That document was the nail in the coffin. And then, another bomb. Han had not filed for custody yet. The legal notice she sent was a bluff, a scare tactic. Aaron reviewed it. It's a template, she said flatly. There's no case number, no judge assignment, no court stamp. Just a name and a demand. It's not real. She's trying to rattle you. Tessa laughed. It wasn't pretty. Let her try. The court petition was filed on October 2nd, 11 days before the fake custody hearing Han threatened. Tessa didn't just request sole legal custody. She requested termination of parental rights for Derek, based on reproductive fraud, and filed a notice of intent to block third-party claims, a pre-emptive strike against Han. I want the court to hear everything, she told me that night. Emails, recordings, documents. I want the judge to see what it looks like when a woman builds a family out of lies and then tries to keep it together anyway. I looked at her. You're going to win. I know, she said. That's not even the point anymore. That Sunday, Derek showed up again. This time, red-eyed and furious. You filed for custody? He barked. The second I opened the door. You're going to erase me from my own son's life? I didn't even flinch. He's not your son, I said. Legally, he is. Not for long. He pushed past me into the house. Charles appeared in the hallway, slow but steady. Don't raise your voice in my home, he said. I gave up everything to stay, Derek snapped. I could have been with Han. I could have left. But I stayed for her. Because she had money, I said. Not because you loved her. You don't know anything. I stepped forward. I know you lied to your wife. I know you tricked her into motherhood, and I know you didn't even want that child until it became a competition." He froze. I pointed to the door. "You're not welcome here anymore. Go call your lawyer." The next morning, Tessa brought over a binder, organized, labeled, tabbed. Every piece of evidence arranged like a trial prosecutor. She placed it on my dining table. "This," she said, "is what happens when you underestimate a woman." I looked at her. Not the girl I once worried about, not the new wife trying to impress her in-laws, not even the broken woman who showed up at my door with a manila envelope and shaking hands. This was someone else. This was a mother. And she was preparing for war. It was just past noon when the envelope arrived, thick, certified, stamped, dropped at Tessa's doorstep like a bomb. Inside, a formal response to custody petition, filed by Derek's attorney, Joseph A. Schilling, Escrant, a man with a reputation for aggressive father-first strategies. Tessa skimmed it once, eyes narrowing. Then she read it again, slower, angrier. And then, in a flat, stunned voice, she said, "He's going to tell the court I'm unstable." She handed me the document. There, in Section 3, under Defenses and Objections, it read, "Petitioner has a documented history of generalized anxiety disorder and postpartum depression, which calls into question her long-term capacity to provide a stable and safe environment for the minor child." I felt like the air had been punched out of my chest. "He's using your therapy against you." Tessa's hands trembled. Not from fear, from rage. "I got help," she said quietly. "I did everything right. I saw a counselor when I started having panic attacks after Kai was born. I took medication when I couldn't sleep. I was responsible." I nodded, trying to keep my own fury contained. "He's turning that into a weakness." She sat down slowly, as if her legs couldn't quite hold her. "I told him about it in confidence. I trusted him. And now he's weaponizing it." I put my hand on hers. "Then we make it a shield." The next day, Tessa marched into her attorney's office with a folder full of documentation. Appointment summaries from her therapist, Dr. Corey, notes from sessions praising her progress, prescriptions from her OB/GYN, a letter of support from a licensed social worker, even a statement from her postnatal doula. Tessa demonstrated remarkable care, patience, and attentiveness despite her anxiety. Her love for her child was never in question. Aaron, her lawyer, raised her eyebrows as she flipped through the pages. "This," she said, "is not the file of an unstable woman. This is the file of a mother who took responsibility for her mental health." Tessa didn't smile. "Not yet. There's more," she said. "I printed Derek's old messages. He used to text me things like, 'I'm glad you're seeing someone. I couldn't handle all the crying,' and 'Take your meds before you spiral again.'" Aaron looked up. "That's emotional manipulation." Tessa nodded. "I want that in the file too." What Derek didn't know, and never cared to ask, was that Tessa worked in HR before Kai was born. She knew how documentation worked. She knew how language could be used against someone. And more importantly, she knew how to build a case. A week later, Derek filed a supplemental declaration. This one included a sworn statement from his sister, Rachel, a woman Tessa hadn't spoken to in over a year. In the statement, Rachel claimed, "Tessa once told me she wished she'd never become a mother. She said she felt trapped and resented the baby for taking away her identity. I feared for the child's safety at times. I read it 3 times before speaking." "She's lying." Tessa nodded, dead calm. "She's mad because I didn't invite her to the christening. She said we were too good for her after she missed the baby shower and never called to check in. Can we discredit it?" "Oh, I'm going to." 2 days later, Tessa produced the following. A text from Rachel sent 2 days after the alleged conversation saying, "You're such a good mom, Tess. Wish I had half your patience." A group chat screenshot where Rachel bragged about watching Kai while Tessa ran errands. A time-stamped video from Derek's birthday party. Rachel holding Kai and laughing while Tessa sipped wine across the room. Aaron printed all of it. "We'll file a motion to strike the statement for inconsistency and retaliation." Tessa just nodded. No relief, just focus. Then came the worst part. Derek submitted a motion for temporary custody, arguing that until the court made a decision, he should have primary overnight care of Kai, because Tessa was emotionally unpredictable. When she read it, she went still, quiet. Then she whispered, "He's trying to take my baby away before the hearing." That night, she called me from her car. She'd pulled over on the side of the road, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "He's not even bonded with Kai," she gasped. "He never changed a diaper. He doesn't know his favorite lullaby. He thinks fruit snacks are a meal. He doesn't know anything. And now he wants to take him overnight?" I stayed on the line until she calmed down. Then I said, "We're going to fight this. We're going to bury him in truth." The temporary custody hearing was scheduled for October 9th. Tessa walked in wearing a navy blue dress, hair pinned, no makeup, just pale and proud and prepared. Derek came with Rachel. Han did not appear. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s named Judge Martinez, reviewed the filings with a raised eyebrow. "I've reviewed both arguments. Mr. Langley's claim of instability appears based on selectively chosen texts and a single third-party statement from a relative with no verified childcare involvement. Ms. Langley, in contrast, has supplied verified medical documentation, consistent therapy notes, and positive witness letters." She turned toward Derek. "Have you been the child's primary caretaker at any point?" "No," he admitted. "But I could—" "Have you ever taken the child to a medical appointment?" "No." "Do you know the name of his pediatrician?" "Dr. Wong?" Tessa interjected quietly. "It's Dr. Meisner now, since June." The judge nodded, expression unchanged. "Motion for temporary custody by Mr. Langley is denied. Sole temporary custody remains with the petitioner, Ms. Langley, pending full custody hearing on October 17th. Derek deflated like a balloon with a pinhole. Tessa didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stood and walked out with her lawyer, head high, step steady. Outside the courtroom, she finally spoke. "He thought I'd be too scared to fight. Too broken." I looked at her. "And now?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Now I'm angry, and I'm just getting started." It came in an unmarked padded envelope. No return address, no note, just a small black USB drive tucked inside a folded sheet of blank printer paper, perfectly sterile, perfectly anonymous. Tessa found it in her mailbox on the morning of October 13th, 4 days before the full custody hearing. At first, she thought it might be junk, or worse, something malicious, but she brought it over to our house anyway. She didn't want to plug it into her own laptop. Smart. Charles disconnected our Wi-Fi and ran a virus scan, just to be safe. Then we opened the contents on an old backup computer we kept in the garage. One file, a single MP3, titled only, Langley December Record M4A. We hit play. The audio began in a coffee shop. You could hear the faint hum of chatter, clinking mugs, a milk steamer hissing. Then, 2 voices, Derek and Han. Han. "So you're telling me she really thinks it was a donor?" Derek, laughing. "She doesn't even question it. I told her I went through a clinic, gave her some fake paperwork. She believed it all." Han. "And the money?" Derek. 30 grand. Straight from her inheritance. Paid for your apartment, your doctor visits, everything." Han. "Jesus, Derek. That's messed up." Derek. "It worked, didn't it? You wanted a baby. I wanted a way out of that marriage. Win-win." Han. "But now you're staying with her?" Derek. Pause. "For now. Let her raise him until he's old enough to understand. And we go for joint. The court won't rip him away from the only mom he's known. We'll just add me in." Han. "So you're playing the long game?" Derek. "That's the only game worth playing." "And then?" Han, quietly. "What if she finds out?" Derek. "She won't. She's too anxious, too soft, and she loves him too much to blow it up." Han. "What if I tell her?" Derek. "Then I tell the court you were unstable, that you ghosted. We both know you weren't clean back then." Han. "You wouldn't." Derek. "Try me." Click, end of file. When the audio stopped, no one spoke. Charles let out a low whistle. "He was planning this all along." I looked at Tessa. She was white as paper, her hands frozen on the edge of the desk. "That's December," she said finally. "Kai wasn't even born yet. He already had this mapped out. The lies, the manipulation, all of it." I nodded. And Han? She was in on it. Maybe not all of it, but enough. Tessa leaned back, eyes wide with something deeper than rage, clarity. This wasn't a slip, she whispered. This was a con. We printed a transcript, labeled the file, and sent it straight to Aaron. The next morning we received a reply. This changes everything. I'm filing a motion to introduce this as evidence. Legally, it was an anonymous tip, but the content was enough. You didn't need to prove who sent it if the voice prints matched, and they did. Aaron called in a professional audio engineer who certified the recording as authentic, unaltered, and containing voices highly consistent with Mr. Derek Langley and Ms. Han Zhou based on known video samples. The new motion was titled, Motion to Introduce Supplemental Audio Evidence, Fraud and Custody Misrepresentation. It was filed under seal on October 14th with a request to fast-track a judicial review. The judge approved it the same day, and the hearing was still on. That night, Tessa and I sat in my living room with Kai asleep in his carrier nearby. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't even talking much, just sigh. Calculating, waiting, changing shape before my eyes. I don't care about revenge, she said at one point, so softly I almost missed it. I care about making sure my son never hears lies about where he came from. Not from Han, not from Derek, not from anyone. I reached over and touched her hand. And if this doesn't work, she looked at me. It will, she said, because for once, I'm not the one keeping secrets. 2 days before the hearing, a new subpoena was issued, this time for Han. She tried to duck it, but she was served at work, in front of her manager, by a process server in a red hoodie pretending to be a DoorDash driver. Aaron's idea. Han tried to call Tessa that night, 6 times. Then she sent a text. Why are you doing this? You're going to ruin 3 lives. Tessa replied with one line. You already did. Han didn't respond again. The morning of October 17th, Tessa stood in front of the mirror in my guest room, buttoning a white blouse she'd ironed the night before. Do I look like a mother? She asked. I tilted my head. No, you look like a storm in a courtroom skirt. She didn't smile, but her eyes said thank you. At 9:00 a.m., sharp, the hearing began. The judge reviewed the new evidence, pressed play on the audio recording for the court, and listened, stone-faced, as Derek's voice echoed through the room. When it ended, Judge Martinez looked directly at him. Mr. Langley, would you like to explain that recording? Derek swallowed. His lawyer whispered something. He shook his head. It was taken out of context. Then provide the context, the judge said. Silence. Tessa stared at him, unmoved. I'll be brief, the judge continued. The petitioner has provided extensive documentation of financial fraud, emotional manipulation, and parental misrepresentation. The respondent's own statements corroborate a premeditated pattern of deceit. She turned the page. In accordance with California Family Code, SAR 7820 and ER 7823, and upon recommendation of the petitioner's legal counsel, the court will proceed to a termination of Mr. Langley's parental rights. Derek made a noise, somewhere between a cough and a plea. The judge didn't blink. Furthermore, the court finds no grounds to grant third-party custody rights to Ms. Han Zhou, who willingly relinquished custody and failed to maintain consistent contact. The petition to block third-party claims is granted. Tessa's hands didn't move, but I saw the tears well up, silent, slow, final. Outside the courthouse, Han tried to approach her. Tessa stepped aside without a word, not with anger, not with hate, just nothing. Like she no longer existed, like the lie had finally walked into the light and dissolved. That night, we sat on the porch, wine glasses untouched. The baby monitor hummed softly beside us. Charles brought out a blanket and laid it gently over her shoulders. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, I didn't win. I looked at her. She was staring up at the stars. I just survived, and that has to be enough. I nodded. Survival is victory, I said. She didn't smile, but she exhaled, and that was more than enough. It was late, well past midnight, when I heard the knock. I thought maybe it was Charles locking himself out again. He does that sometimes, forgets his keys when he walks the dog, but when I opened the door, it was Tessa. Hair loose, eyes hollow, wearing her old hoodie from college, the one she used to sleep in during her pregnancy, the one with sleeves stretched from too many tears and too many nights curled in a ball. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, except the ghost had a name. Han, she whispered. I just listened to a voicemail from 2 years ago. I stepped aside. Come in. She sat on the kitchen stool, her phone in one hand and a small blue flash drive in the other. I was cleaning out the drawer in my old desk, she said slowly. I found this in the back, behind some envelopes. I thought it was for work, but when I plugged it in, her voice cracked. There were 3 voice memos saved from an old backup. I forgot I even made them. She paused. The 3rd one was from her. The file was dated February 9th, 2023, a Thursday. Tessa had been out of town that weekend, visiting her sister in Napa. Derek had stayed behind. He said his father, Paul, had taken a turn for the worse at the care home. He wanted to be close. Tessa believed him. She'd even sent flowers, had the receipt to prove it. Thinking of you and your dad, love you. T. She played the voicemail for me right there in my kitchen. Han's voice, slightly drunk, giggly. Hey, I know I said I wouldn't call, but you left your charger again. Also, you owe me dinner for that massage. I swear I can't walk straight today. Laughter. Come back soon, okay? I missed you the second you left. I know you're doing the responsible thing, but screw it. I wish you were here. I miss your dumb face. Pause. Then quieter, more serious. I know we said we'd wait until she leaves you, but I'm getting tired of being patient, Derek. Just saying. The timestamp 2:43 a.m. February 10th. While Tessa was asleep in her sister's guest room, while Derek claimed he was sleeping on a hospital cot beside his comatose father, I felt my stomach twist. He lied to you about a dying man, I said. Tessa nodded. I knew he was a liar, she whispered, but I didn't know he was that kind of liar. She pressed play again. Listen to the message 3 more times. Not crying, not angry, just blank. The next day, she filed to add the audio to her post-custody record, not because she needed it to win, she already had, but she wanted a record, a paper trail, a way to show her son someday who these people really were. I don't want to erase the truth, she said. I want to own it. I want to choose the day he finds out, not leave it to whispers or secrets or some cruel Facebook post when he's 13. Her lawyer agreed. The file was sealed for future family use. It wouldn't go to court, but it would sit, officially preserved, as part of the digital truth. Later that week, she asked me something that broke my heart. Do you think he ever really loved me? And for the first time in all of this, after court hearings, after custody wins, after nights of wine and worry and whispered strength, I didn't have an answer. So I told her the only thing I knew was true. I think you loved him enough for both of you, and I think he liked the way that felt. She didn't reply, just nodded. On October 25th, a letter came from Derek's attorney. Short, cold, final. My client wishes to formally relinquish all parental claims. He requests no visitation, no communication, and no future involvement in the child's life. He acknowledges full termination as final and binding. Tessa framed it, put it on the wall above her desk, next to a drawing Kai made last week. A stick figure with brown hair holding a little boy's hand. Underneath, the crayon scrawl said, "Me and Mommy." 2 nights later, I woke up to a text from Tessa, 2:17 a.m. I think I can forgive myself now. And maybe that was the most powerful line in this whole story, because the shame wasn't just about what he did, it was about what she allowed, what she overlooked, ignored, rationalized, and now she was done doing that. It arrived on a Tuesday, in a pale blue envelope, the kind used for wedding invitations or baby announcements, not heartbreak. No return address again, just her name, written in tight, slanted cursive on the back flap. Hanjo. Tessa stared at it in silence for a long time. She didn't open it right away. She just placed it on the kitchen counter, poured herself half a cup of coffee, and sat down across from it like it might speak first. When I stopped by that afternoon, it was still unopened. She looked up at me with hollow eyes. She didn't send an email. Not a text, not a voicemail like last time. A letter. I said nothing. I think I'm afraid to know what it says, she admitted. Because if it's cruel, I'll know she never cared, and if it's sincere, she trailed off. I finished it for her. Then you'll have to decide what kind of woman you want to be. She nodded slowly, then, with trembling fingers, opened the envelope. It was 7 pages, neatly written, no corrections, no crossed-out words. She had chosen every sentence carefully. I won't read it all here. It wasn't mine to share. But I'll tell you the parts that mattered most. I know I don't deserve to write to you. I know I forfeited any right to speak the moment I left the hospital without even holding him. That decision haunts me every day. I didn't leave because I didn't love him. I left because I didn't love me. I was terrified I'd ruin him, that he'd grow up with the same fear, the same shame, the same hole in the middle of his chest that I've carried since I was 5. Derek told me you knew. He said you were okay with everything, that this was all agreed on, that you wanted to help us, not replace me. I was a fool to believe him. He used us both. That line landed like a stone in the chest. We both knew it was true, but it was the next part that changed everything. I've been sober now for 14 months. I go to meetings. I have a sponsor. I moved out of the apartment Derek got for me. I live with my sister now, 3 towns over. I know I can't be his mother. I know I gave that up. But I would give anything, just to be in his life as a person, a friend, a helper, a quiet presence in the background if you'll let me. I'm not asking for custody, or even visitation. I just want to know the sound of his laugh. I want to see who he's becoming. I want to clean up the mess I made, not with words, but with time. I don't want to take anything away from you. You are his mother. You always were. Tessa sat very still after reading that part. Then she folded the pages, not neatly, not carefully, just quickly, like her hands had finally remembered how to move. She looked out the window. Kai was playing in the yard, wearing one of Charles's old sun hats and dragging a plastic wagon across the grass. I don't know what the right thing is, she said. You don't have to, I told her. Not today. That night, Tessa wrote a letter back. 3 pages, handwritten, but not emotional. Controlled, clear. She didn't show it to me, but she did tell me what she said. I believe you when you say you regret it, but regret doesn't undo abandonment. He's happy. He's whole. He doesn't know you. And right now, he doesn't need to. Maybe that will change in time, maybe not. That will be his choice. For now, I'm choosing silence. She didn't send it. She burned it, because the letter wasn't for Han. It was for herself. A week later, another envelope came. Smaller. Inside, a $1,500 cashier's check and a note that said simply, for Kai. No expectations, Han. Tessa didn't cash it. She framed it, put it in a shadow box in the top of her closet. I want to show it to him someday, she said, when he's old enough. To ask the hard questions. I want him to know not everyone ran away forever. I looked at her. Do you think she'll try again? Tessa shrugged. Probably. She looked back down at the framed check, expression unreadable. But this time, I won't be the one who answers. A few days later, Kai came up to her, holding a plastic stethoscope. Are you sad, Mama? Tessa blinked. No, she said gently. Why do you ask? He placed the stethoscope to her chest and listened. I think your heart is loud today. She smiled then. I think it is too. It was a crisp Saturday morning when I took Kai to the park. The kind of morning where the sun is low and the air feels sharp enough to wake you up, but soft enough to promise warmth by noon. Kai was dragging his little red wagon filled with toy cars and half-eaten snacks, humming a tune that I didn't recognize, but found myself smiling at anyway. I sat on the bench near the playground, watching him chase after a butterfly, when a man approached me. He looked like he belonged in a novel. Late 40s, salt and pepper hair, wearing a worn leather jacket and jeans. His eyes were sharp, but not unkind. Excuse me, he said, his voice calm but direct. Are you Tessa Langley? I nodded cautiously. I thought so, he said, sitting down beside me without waiting for an invitation. My name's Martin. I knew your husband. I stiffened. You knew Derek? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. More than you might think. Martin told me he'd worked with Derek 15 years ago, back when Derek was still a bright-eyed graduate fresh out of college. He wasn't the man you thought he was, Martin said, voice low. Not by a long shot. I listened, heart tightening with each word. He was charming, Martin continued. Too charming. People liked him, trusted him. But beneath that, there was something else, a darkness, a tendency to lie, to manipulate, even then. I swallowed hard. Kai tugged at my sleeve, asking if I wanted to play. I waved him off gently. Martin was talking about something else now. There's more, he said, looking around like he didn't want anyone else to overhear. Derek was involved in something illegal. Not petty theft or anything like that, but money laundering. He worked with a group of people overseas. It all came crashing down a few years before you married him. My mind reeled. Why didn't I know any of this? Martin shrugged. Because he's good at hiding it, but the police were watching. They never charged him. He made a deal. Part of it involved leaving the country, starting fresh, you. I felt a cold wave pass through me. Everything clicked, the lies, the secrecy, the sudden moves, the strange phone calls late at night. I wanted to scream, but instead, I asked the question that burned inside me. What does this have to do with Han? Martin looked grave. She was part of that world. Derek met her through those connections. When things got too hot, she was sent here, to keep an eye on him, to make sure he stayed quiet, and then, well, the baby. I closed my eyes. The betrayal was deeper than I'd ever imagined. Martin stood up, preparing to leave. Be careful, Tessa, he said quietly. Derek's past isn't done with you yet. I watched him walk away. Kai tugged my hand. Mom, can we play now? I smiled through the tears. Yes, sweetheart. Let's play. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a mind racing too fast to catch up. Martin's words echoed in my head. Money laundering, secret deals, Han's role as a watcher. It felt like my whole life was unraveling thread by thread. I knew I couldn't ignore it. I had to dig deeper. I started with the little things, searching through Derek's old files that he'd left behind in the basement, now gathering dust. It was there, beneath a stack of unpaid bills and Christmas cards, that I found a worn, leather-bound notebook. No name on it, just a date, March 2018. Inside, cryptic notes, codes, and names I didn't recognize. But the most chilling discovery was a list titled Accounts. One entry was marked with a star, a bank in Hong Kong, with an account number and an estimated balance of over $2.7 million. My hands shook as I snapped photos with my phone. Next, I dug through Derek's old emails, or what I could access from his laptop, protected by a password he'd forgotten to change. Hidden in a folder labeled For Later were dozens of messages between Derek and an unknown contact named M. One email, dated July 15, 2019, read, "The shipment arrived. Funds transferred to the Hong Kong account. Waiting on your confirmation." Another from October 3, 2019. Han is compromised. We need to extract her immediately. Derek will handle the fallout. The realization hit me like a punch. Han wasn't just some random woman. She was a pawn in a game Derek was playing, and Kai was the unintended consequence. That night, I confronted Tessa. "We have to decide what to do with this," I said. She nodded, exhausted. "If I expose Derek, the media will find out. The police might reopen investigations. Kai's name will be dragged through the mud." I took a breath. "But if we stay silent, this secret will hang over us forever." Tessa's voice was barely a whisper. "I want to protect Kai, but I also want justice." She looked at me, eyes filled with fierce determination. "I'm not just going to sit back anymore." The next morning, she reached out to a private investigator. For $12,000, he promised to track Derek's current whereabouts, financial transactions, and any associates still in the picture. 3 days later, a report arrived. Derek was living under an alias in a coastal town 4 states away. He was using the Hong Kong account to funnel money quietly, and, worst of all, he had recently been in contact with Han. Tessa stared at the pages. "Why now?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "But we're about to find out." That night, Tessa sat in the dark, looking at the photo of Kai on her phone. She whispered to herself, "You deserve a life free of lies." Her hands clenched into fists. The slow burn of betrayal was turning into controlled rage. She was ready. The weight of the truth was settling in like a stone in my chest. Derek was out there, still tangled in lies and secrets, still dragging our lives into chaos. Tessa and I knew we had to act, but we needed to be careful. Too much noise, and Kai would be caught in the crossfire. So, after long nights of pacing and whispering, Tessa made a choice. She would send Han a message, anonymous, clear, a warning. We spent hours crafting it, every word measured. It said, "Han, I know what Derek's done. I know where he's hiding. Stay away from us. Protect Kai. This is your last chance." We didn't include a name, an address, or a number, just the warning. Tessa sent it from a burner phone. 2 days passed with no reply. I worried it had been ignored. Then, late one evening, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Short, simple, and chilling. "I never wanted to hurt him. Neither did you." Tessa read it aloud. Her voice trembled. "I don't know what she means." We both felt it. A shift, subtle, but undeniable. Han wasn't backing down. She was preparing for something. Then came the second message, 7 minutes later. "Meet me. Coffee. Friday. Noon. The corner cafe." Tessa stared at the screen. "No, we can't risk it. It's a trap." But I saw something else in her eyes, a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the moment to finally confront the past, to find answers, to wrest control from Derek's shadow. Friday came, gray and cold. Tessa went alone. I stayed home with Kai, the house silent except for the ticking clock. Hours later, Tessa returned. Her face was pale, but calm. She sat down and took a deep breath. "They want to talk," she said. "They want to help." I asked her what Han said. She hesitated, then told me about the confession. Han's voice, trembling. "Derek wasn't the man I thought he was. I was scared and desperate. I left because I was weak, not because I stopped caring." She revealed she'd been gathering proof against Derek. Documents, recordings, even plans to go to the police. "I want to make this right," Han said, "but I can't do it alone." Tessa looked at me with tired eyes. "We have a choice," she said. "Trust her, or keep fighting alone." I never imagined I'd be working with Han, the woman whose arrival had shattered our family like a storm. But there we were, 2 women bound by betrayal, facing a common enemy, Derek. The alliance was fragile from the start. Tessa and I met Han in a small cafe, the same place where they'd first talked. Her eyes held a strange mix of guilt and resolve. "I'm done running," she said. "I want to end this." Han handed over a manila envelope. Inside were documents, bank statements, emails, pictures of Derek meeting with known criminals. There were voice recordings, too. Conversations where Derek boasted about hiding money overseas and manipulating everyone around him. It was the proof we needed. But Derek was smart. He had eyes everywhere. Within days, Tessa started receiving threats, anonymous calls, shadowy figures parked near our house, and one terrifying night when the tire of her car was slashed. Still, we pushed forward. We contacted a trusted journalist friend, someone who specialized in exposing corruption. For $5,000, he agreed to investigate Derek and publish the story, something that would force the authorities to act. While waiting for the article to go live, Han and Tessa worked to protect Kai. They changed schools, moved to a new neighborhood, and installed security cameras. Every small step was a battle against the fear that Derek would try to hurt our son, or us. Then came the day the story broke. Local businessmen exposed, hidden crimes and family lies. The headlines screamed from every newsstand. Derek's carefully crafted image crumbled overnight. Within 48 hours, police came knocking. Armed with warrants, they seized Derek's properties and froze his accounts. He was arrested on charges of money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy. The day Derek was taken away, I watched from the driveway as he was led into a black SUV. His eyes met mine for a moment, cold, defeated, and yet somehow still dangerous. Back inside, Tessa held Kai close. "I promise you," she whispered to him, "this is the beginning of a better life." Han disappeared shortly after. She left a note for Tessa. "I'll always be sorry for the pain, for the past, but you and Kai deserve peace." Months have passed since then. Our lives are quieter now. Kai laughs more freely, and the nightmares have lessened. Tessa and I have rebuilt what Derek tried to destroy, a family grounded in truth and strength. Sometimes I think about all that was lost, but more often I think about how far we've come, how betrayal became a catalyst for courage, and how, in the end, revenge isn't about cruelty, it's about reclaiming your life.